it's different. Shaylin, you can correct. It's 5:06 p.m. On April 4th, calling the meeting to order. So we'll begin with roll call. And so if each member could go around and just state your name from the roll. Maybe starting, first person now on my screen is Leah. So maybe starting with Leah. Or anyone with better internet.
Kira Williams.
Jason Stevens.
Jean Alsop.
Christy.
Christy Robinson.
And Leah. Leah Lavin is here. Can we just move on with that? That's sufficient.
Yeah.
And I'm Carter Berry, and I'm here. All right, so our first order of business is we need to elect a vice chair, which we were supposed to do when I was thrown into this role a month or two ago. So are there any, I'll open the floor. Are there any nominations or proposals or anything for a vice chair to the committee?
This is Christy Robinson. I would be happy to serve as vice chair if, unless someone else would like to do that.
Christy, are you interested in it, or Kiara?
I think,
Yes.
Christy.
I would be happy to throw my name in the hat.
Your hat in the ring. So is there a motion to nominate Christy then?
I give a motion to nominate Christy.
And I second it.
Great. All those, or if there's no objections, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 That's 3. Aye. I vote aye as well. Are there any opposed? Great. I'm banging my gavel. Christy's the new vice chair of the Community Sustainability Committee. Thank you, Christy. Our next
Thank
item.
y'all.
Yeah. I will be dumping work on your desk very shortly. Our next item of business, we need to approve the meeting minutes from March. I guess I can open the floor if anyone has any questions or comments or concerns or had a chance to review those. And if not, if there's a motion to approve the minutes, that would be welcome as well.
This is Christy Robinson. I motion to approve the minutes.
A second.
Second, great. If there are no objections or if anyone, there are no comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Great. Any opposed? I think that was everybody, or maybe. Great. The motion passes as well. So we've approved our March minutes. Great. So we've gone through those orders of business. Next, we're moving swiftly on to a presentation from Ben Weber, who's on this call, who's the bicycle and pedestrian coordinator. And I can pass the floor over to you, Ben.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't have a formal presentation for you guys today, but it's great to be here this evening, and I'm glad there's so much interest in this committee in bicycle and pedestrian issues around the city. So I'm fairly new with the city. I've been here a little longer than Shailene, but not much longer. I'm the bicycle and pedestrian coordinator here at Winston-Salem DOT. I am involved with a variety of bicycle, pedestrian, active mobility projects. Some of those include construction of greenways and planning of greenways, micromobility vendors, procuring them and helping with some of those issues regarding micromobility, site plan review, reviewing plans for new developments, making sure sidewalks are in place, and other plans that we have, making sure those are accounted for. And then just various street safety requests that we get, working to address those issues, come up with new designs, improve safety. Those are all kind of things that on the day-to-day that I'm involved with, but there's lots more stuff. And I'm also the staff liaison for the Bicycle, Pedestrian, and Active Mobility Committee, another council committee. And they are taking a look at things like our Unified Development Ordinance, which specifies how wide streets are built, whether sidewalk is included on both sides of the street or just one. They're really involved with policy changes in that regard. Things like which kinds of curbs we use in neighborhoods. They're involved with that as well. And I think that's kind of, I think Shailene, you're kind of saying that that's where the opportunities exist for our committees to collaborate, kind of with policy improvements in that regard. So I think I'd like to hear some of the ideas you all have in ways that you think that we could work together. But I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity. Shailene, I don't know what kind of discussions have been had before, but I'd love to hear any ideas or any ways that we think we can collaborate.
So I know Mason in particular asked if we could invite you to this meeting. So I wonder if Mason had some ideas to share.
I have a lot to say, but I'm driving and I'll be home in about 2 or 3 minutes. So I'm happy to talk then. Sorry, just give me a few more minutes.
No problem.
Ben, could you maybe talk about a few of the things that you guys are working on right now? Which projects, which areas?
Yeah, absolutely. One of our we've a couple of greenway projects going on right now. Long Branch Trail extension. So the current Long Branch Trail ends at Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. That will be extended about a little over a mile north to 25th Street. So that's a big project. The multi-use path, which runs along Salem Parkway, that's another similar project. Right now, I've been working a lot on micromobility ordinance changes. So we had, I'm sure you guys maybe are aware that we had spin scooters in town, and they pulled out of town in November. And after that happened, we kind of decided to revamp our ordinance, make it a little less restrictive, make it so scooters could operate longer, make parking a little bit easier for the operators to navigate. And now we're back trying to advertise our permit and secure some new vendors, which I think we'll be successful at. We have quite a bit of interest, so I think those will be back in town at some point and continue to be a transportation option for the community. And I think these ordinance changes that we just made are gonna make sure that the vendors are on a more firm footing and that it's a little more viable for them. So.
And there was also something with the pedicabs.
Yes, that's not me as much. Reed Hutchins is kind of handling that. He does some of the like taxi type services, but we did just pass a pedicab ordinance. I think there's already an operator operating. That's kind of why it came about. But that will ordinance is now in place and it allows them to operate. I think it's pretty loose, or I guess pretty it'll be good for those vendors to be able to, I think, access a lot of different areas of the city, and it's pretty good that way. It's not overly restrictive.
Okay, so I'm just getting home so I can talk now. So I have a couple of thoughts about both how greenways can integrate native landscaping. So, adding a bunch of native plants along the greenway, or different like bench, little bench spots that also have like native species like goldenrod, phlox, whatever, and possibly bike racks as well. And then also just like the expansion of the greenways along a lot of the old railroad tracks too. I think a lot of them are just not used, and there seem to be no plans for them to be used. So like there's organizations that have helped cities convert those into pedestrian infrastructure. Like I think Rails to Trails is a really big one. So just any thoughts on that? And I don't know if you guys were looking at grants for stuff like that at any time in the future.
Yeah,
that might have been a while. But
we've definitely had our eye on those Rails to Trails projects, and those are really, really popular and got a lot of interest in projects like that. Our Long Branch Trail project is sort of a project like that. It runs along an NCDOT, North Carolina Department of Transportation rail corridor, which the existing Long Branch Trail does as well. Another Rails to Trails project that we've got interest in is the Stratford Road rail line, which maybe you're kind of referring to.
Yep.
That one, yeah, we definitely think that would be a great project. Right now, the Norfolk Southern, they still own it. It's not being used. It's inactive, but it's not abandoned. So that's kind of where it's tricky, where we've had conversations with them this past summer. We actually explored a product that would allow us to not even have to tear up the rails. It's like a decking product, which goes right on top of the rail. That way you don't have to deal with as much of environmental impacts or soil impacts. And it's just with them, it's just kind of, they weren't ready to part with it yet.
Yep, that makes sense.
Entertain a lease or anything like that. So it's something that in the future we'll be considering, that's for sure. If things
a
change.
secondary option is I also I looked it up on GIS and that sort of thing, and right next to it there's a utility easement. And so utility easements may be another way to branch that, because they actually they look for permanent infrastructure. Yeah, a lot of the times when they're doing overhead line work and that sort of thing, they'll put down a temporary path. So they're usually okay with cities putting in pedestrian infrastructure if they're allowed to close it whenever they need to do work. Just a thought there too.
Yeah, no, those are definitely, I've seen those done in other communities. I haven't been involved with exploring those options in Winston-Salem, but it's another case where you kind of have to follow the power company's rules, and what they want might be a little bit different than what we're trying to get with the Greenway. But I definitely think that's worth exploring, because there's some really great corridors that connect to some really vital areas around the city.
Yep. So I think that especially along the Greenway, both like stronger riparian buffer would be kind of interesting, native plant introduction, and then rainwater collection, or I guess slowing down. I can't remember the name of that right now, like spillway stoppage or something, I don't know, whatever. All those things could be really useful. And really it's effectively no cost to add in a lot of ways when you're already rebuilding the Greenway. So we should consider adding that to the I guess the DOT. It would be, I don't know, I guess it would be the DOT guidelines for when they're installing the greenways, since I don't know when the one along Silas Creek was getting built, like when that was supposed to start, but we might be able to change the guidelines before that actually happens and kind of preempt it a little bit.
Yeah, that would be something to definitely incorporating native plants along our greenways would be really, really wise. I think just considering that some of the, like, naturalizing some of these areas could require less maintenance as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Like reducing spray, it would be a really, like the amount we have to spray would be pretty important, I think, especially
Yeah,
since
I
a lot of the
know.
greenways follow creek. Sort of, we
Yeah,
don't want runoff into the creeks.
yeah, from a water quality standpoint, that would be important as well. I think that maybe you know this, Shailene, but I think the North Carolina legislature passed a native plants requirement. So I think that will probably come into play with some of our federally funded and state funded greenway projects. So that's exciting. I think, you know, for as far as the stormwater and native vegetation things go, even beyond greenways, they could be incorporated into streetscaping, things like rain gardens, things like that. Could serve, you know, a habitat pollinator purpose, but also protection from vehicles for people walking or biking, and then a stormwater
Yeah,
function as well. So really, it could be pretty impactful to combine those features and
yeah, it's
make a
win-win-win.
big impact with that. So
Definitely. Yeah, and well, I don't. So here's the thing: is I don't know how to make that happen. I haven't been, working in city government or with city governments long enough to know how to change those guidelines. But I know it needs to happen. So however I can help with that would be great. I just don't know how to change these regulations because I think a lot of it has to do with entrenched thinking in the DOT and that sort of thing. I don't know. Any thoughts that you might have on that would be good.
yeah, that's the key question, right? There's always good ideas floating around, but making them happen is a different story. You know, especially when it's across different departments. I think Shailene knows this probably very well. But you know, some of our infrastructure development standards, things like that. That's where that like different street tree requirements or things like that could be changed. There's really a lot of potential with some of these policy recommendations that we can make, I think.
And I'd like to go ahead and say, for example, when I first talked to Ben, he immediately said, hey, we want some more trees along with the greenway. I believe he came up to the ones where we're not planting trees because there's utilities running through them. Is that correct?
Yep.
So sometimes there's things going on underground that we don't see. But I'll say that Ben is definitely trying to move that forward. But yes, and I'll also say, yes, DOT did pass it that wherever they're putting in plantings, they are now planting native, which I think really helps on that.
That's great.
Greensboro has recently, only in the last month, approved something that they copied DOT and made it such that any plantings on, and it's very specific because it doesn't include all plantings on city facilities. New ones going in have to be native. So
good. That's a good push to have. Okay. Yeah, what else? I guess are there any moving pieces or like changes from like the downtown plan? I remember reading it recently. I'm not sure when it was supposed to start getting implemented, but the what was it called? The general downtown plan or the unified downtown plan, maybe?
Yeah, there's the downtown plan and then there's like the streetscape master plan. I think those are kind of maybe overlap a little bit. No, I haven't been involved with a lot of that stuff. I think that we are making some changes to the streets downtown, turning some of the one ways into two ways. And I think after that's done, that's going to require light posts and other infrastructure to kind of need to be changed around a little bit. So I think once that's in the spot that needs to be, I think that some of those other pieces will get underway. I know Jason Thiel at the Downtown Partnership.
Yeah, I'm
he
in that
has
committee as well.
talked to me that and wanted me to kind of be involved with some of that. So I think that will be exciting to.
Well, sounds like we'll be working together on that too. That's good. Yeah, and I just had some other thoughts about the downtown plan in that it seems like it has 0 lost parking spaces, which is weird to me. Like, I think if we're going to increase pedestrian and bike infrastructure, it will require the removal of some parking spaces, especially along the main corridors like 4th Street and Trade Street. But I feel like that might be a really hard political discussion. So
yeah, that's where things do get political. People don't like to lose their parking, unfortunately. But I think as space becomes more of at a premium downtown, I think that things will naturally move towards more space efficient options. So I think parking especially on-street parking will make less sense downtown.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the way things will have to naturally go to make space for what we want.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I think that will happen, even if it's not necessarily maybe a big factor of a plan right now. I think that will happen in the future. And it's not like these things are, you could have your parking or you can't, or you can only have parking or sidewalks. Parking can, if parking's along a sidewalk, it can provide a buffer from traffic a little bit. So it can buffer a bike lane and protect a bike lane from traffic. So there is ways that parking can be used as an advantage to pedestrians and bicyclists. So.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. But unfortunately, in the downtown plan, it seemed like they had actually the opposite thing in mind, where they had, traffic, bike lane, then parking, instead of traffic, parking, then bike lane. So that was one of my points of contention. I think we need to separate the bike lanes more heavily. But I think that's a sustainability discussion, though. So maybe we'll take that different time. I don't know. I can't think of anything else that actually links to the sustainability committee necessarily. I think that covers most of it. I don't know if anyone else has any other topics that relate to the pedestrian infrastructure or anything.
I imagine it sounds like Shailene and Ben have talked a little bit about this, but I don't have specific questions, but I'm wondering, we have a handful of people, meaning all the people in this room specifically, who are willing to help and support if there are moments where it's obvious for us to collaborate. And it sounds like Mason has a lot of great ideas of how to initiate that as well. So I just want to express my support for a lot of the ideas that you're promoting, and whatever it is what our committee can do. I'm supportive of doing that. So
yeah, there's so much work to be done, but I think one thing that comes to mind is integrating land use and transportation a little more thoughtfully. That's something that other communities have started to do a little bit better maybe than us, or a little bit further along. Things like parking requirements, how many spaces of parking developers need to provide, things like that. They impact stormwater runoff, they impact urban heat island effect. Really trying to make sure those make sense from a walkability standpoint. Those space things further apart, and denser development is obviously more walkable, more bikeable. I think that's really an opportunity for us to think about some land use reform. I don't know if the committee has been involved with any of that in the past, but I mean, that's a big topic right now. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree that density is sustainability. So that's definitely true. The committee has not, I don't think we've done that in any significant way, honestly. Talk about land use reform or anything like that, but definitely a change in zoning. I would definitely lend my support to most zoning reforms. So yeah, just let us know if you guys are pitching something to city council or whoever. I'm not really sure who we pitch it to, but I'd be more than happy to lend my support to that.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep you guys in the loop. I think that's something that with some of these infrastructure development standards that our committee is going to be taking a look at. So I think that will definitely be something in the future to keep track of.
Okay.
Ben, are you involved in the project to connect all of the greenways to go towards Salem Lake?
Yes.
That's been in the work for a number of years, but I'd love an update on that.
Yeah, maybe you're referring to the Piedmont Regional Greenway. So I could talk about that a little bit. The Piedmont Regional Greenway, regional effort to connect Salem Lake to Kernersville to Greensboro. And there's a piece of that has received funding from our Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is a transportation organization that handles federal funding. So it received funding from that, and that's being designed. So that will connect to Salem Lake, where I can't remember the street name now, but where the Greenway the furthest extent of Salem Lake Greenway, I guess you could say, and that will connect to Hastings Hill Road. So that will be a big extension of the Salem Creek Greenway. And then on going kind of the other direction, on the other end of Salem Creek Greenway, there's an extension that we're looking at around Marketplace Mall to Forsyth Tech Community College. So those projects are moving forward. We've done a couple of feasibility studies for the Forsyth Tech to Marketplace Mall section. So those are definitely, we have our eye on those. It's just getting the funding together for that and working with, there's definitely a lot of moving pieces where some of the greenways have to go under a bridge, and it has to wait till the bridge can be rebuilt so that there's space underneath the bridge for the greenway to pass under. So we've been working with the North Carolina Department of Transportation on some of those details, but yeah, but Salem Creek Greenway, we're looking at extending that. So.
And that would be so wonderful. Is there any sort of timeline you have on that? I know this has been decades in the process, but I just, from a sustainability point and being able to bike to work and just, bike, any of that, kind of from our purview, our committee's purview, do you have any idea on the timeline?
For the Salem Creek Greenway projects, unfortunately not. The Salem Lake end of the extension that will move forward probably in the next couple of years. I know one of the problems that we've been running into is our engineering department. So our department, DOT, plans the greenways. We submit projects for funding. We find that funding, apply for grants, things like that. And then our engineering department designs the greenways and bids them out for construction and handles some of those details. And that's kind of where we've hit a pinch point where our engineering department has some staffing shortages right now. So that's been slowing things down, but those projects, it always takes so much longer than you want them to, but they are moving forward. So one of the projects that we'll get to actually see some dirt on in the next, probably this summer or this spring, will be the Salem Parkway multi-use path. So there's already some small portions of that multi-use path built, but it will run along Salem Parkway downtown. It will connect to the ballpark area. Behind the ballpark, there's a tunnel that runs underneath Peters Creek Parkway. It'll run along Salem Parkway to the Strollway. So that will break ground this summer. That will be exciting. And then that project's a two-stage project. And other
the thing with the
phase,
tunnel. That's the thing with the tunnel that goes under right next to it goes under Peters Creek, right next to the ballpark.
that's right. Yep. So behind the
Okay.
ballpark, the tunnel's already been built, and a small
Right.
section of path has already been built. So that will extend the path along Salem Parkway to the Strollway, and it will connect around the
Gotcha.
Strollway bridge over the interstate.
Are there any plans to do some multimodal paths down Peters Creek, like towards Ardmore? Because I noticed that Peters Creek, I mean, it's just way too wide in a lot of sections. It doesn't make any sense for like the amount of traffic we get. I think like making a separated bike lane makes a lot of sense along Peters Creek in some ways. And also, I've noticed that it kind of acts as a huge barrier between like the Ardmore and West Salem neighborhoods. Like it's pretty hard to cross. You have to bike both downhill and then uphill, a significant amount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Peters Creek Parkway is a pretty treacherous road, to say the least. It does divide those two neighborhoods, and having a better design for that street to allow it to be safer for pedestrians and bicyclists makes a lot of sense. I think that's not something I've been involved with yet. I think that will probably happen at some point. I don't know when that will be, but that's a great idea. We have numerous streets like similar to Peters Creek Parkway that also divide our neighborhoods. So really, there's a lot of work to be done in that regard for streets like that.
Cool. Well, it sounds like you have plenty of work to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're keeping me busy over here.
Well, I just want to say thank you for taking the time, Ben, and look forward to any future conversations or connections. And it sounds like you and Mason will be connected through the downtown Winston-Salem process too. So thanks again for your time.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'm excited about some future collaborations. So I think Shailene, you'll be at our bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee meeting at some point. So after that, I think we could probably get a good bearing of where we stand and what makes sense to work together on and start to hit the ground running a little bit. So I'm really thrilled that there's so much interest in active mobility, because it makes so much sense sustainability wise. So that's really, really exciting. It's great to be here tonight. So
Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Ben.
All right, so now over to, let's see what's next. Shailene for a CSPC annual report.
Okay, so I made a draft reviewing last year's activity, and technically you're supposed to have a report every year. It's been like a year and a half, so it's not quite just the fiscal year. It's like the fiscal year plus the start of 2023. As you all know, there weren't very many meetings, so there's not a whole lot to report. And there is not a set way for the reporting to be done. It just says a report will be submitted. So this will be submitted to the city manager, and the city manager will essentially send it out to city council. So that report should just have the basics of what went on, versus different from, whatever your recommendations are, which could be a different report. So you have all had that in your inboxes, and if you have any modifications, I will say we shouldn't necessarily name names of who did what in the past, but other than that, if we keep it as is versus giving opinions about what happened, is what I would say. But if you need modifications, let me know. And it's to you, Carter.
And it's what? Sorry.
To you, for you to lead going forward how you would like to deal with this report.
Gotcha. Is it something that we need to approve though?
It would be something you guys need to approve because it's coming from you with my support.
Gotcha. So I guess maybe the most obvious thing is open it up if there were any questions or comments on that document or discussion points that people wanted to raise.
I wanted to thank you, Dr. Miller. This seems like something going forward that the chairs and the vice chairs might do. And the fact that you took the time out of your really busy schedule to draft this on behalf of this committee is wonderful. I'd like to express my gratitude for that.
So is there a motion to approve the CSPC report as written and sent to us?
And everyone's had a chance to review it.
Has anyone not had a chance to review it and feels like we should wait, or?
I'm just finishing it now. It looks good to me.
I was going to say, if you have it, you can do that right now because Dr. Miller just
It's a
sent it
page and a
out.
half. Yeah, we didn't do much last year because we didn't meet for 6
Yeah. And thank you for including it on this meeting invite. That was very thoughtful too.
Yeah.
I motion to approve it.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes to approve the CSPC annual report. Great.
Thank you.
This is the most business we've done in a meeting since I've started this committee. All right, and we got more. So I don't know if Christy or Kira, one of you want to lead some conversation. So last week or last month we had or was it 2 months ago? No, it was last month, whatever.
Last month.
Yeah, we had the request from the group at A&T looking to think about air quality sort of in urban, wanting us to help out in some way, and so there's been a little bit of follow-up, and so Christy or Kira, one of you want to report out to everyone else where we are with that?
Okay. Right. Well, if anyone missed the presentation, it was very informative, but we left with a lot of questions about what our role would be to support A&T in their study. And Dr. Miller was nice enough to gather our questions and submit those, and a response was provided. So basically, it's for the understanding of secondary organic aerosols and ground level ozone resulting from chemical interaction between biogenic and anthropogenic emissions in the triad, and how that impacts the air quality, climate, and urban heat. And so they would like for us to aid in creating a focus group to look at the socio-economic impact of that, and the impact that the climate change has on individuals who reside in areas most likely to be subjected to the higher levels of rising urban heat and contaminant in the air. So our question was, are we the focus group? Are we representative of the areas of the triad that may be impacted? And one of our main concerns was that we're not representative of those areas. I believe that I am the only individual who lives in one of the areas that's impacted. And so they would like to have a focus group of 6 to 12 individuals with similar backgrounds who live in the selected areas. Carter, what does that mean? I don't know. It's still kind of a generic answer. But basically, we would be helping them to get a focus group together to help canvass the area, to ask questions. I think we may aid in helping to craft the questions for the survey, if I'm not mistaken. Is that what you're getting out of it, Dr. Miller?
Yes, I believe that's what they mean.
Okay. So I'm really excited about it because I've always been concerned about the things I see in my area. And I know in my area, people feel that they don't have a voice or they don't have the knowledge to even know how they can be impacted by the things that occur in our area. But I think that we as a group, we would need to see who could be representative of the other areas, because I'm in the Northeast Ward. So that's like right before you get to Walkertown, smaller area, because it picks right up into East Winston and then the North Ward. And I'm assuming that we would have to locate organizations. I think Christy, he said that we could reach out to organizations that are in that area that have relationships with the residents of those areas to help get that focus group started.
I think the document that was sent from Dr. Stone was helpful. If it continued to be pretty heavy on scientific vernacular. And instead of a 1-pager, it's like a 2.5-pager. So I worry that it's not especially digestible for folks. To your point, when that you were saying that folks might feel that they have a barrier to entry because they might not feel like they know enough, or they might not. I don't know if this particular document would reduce those fears per se. But it does give it more concise than a video, and it's in a written way, which I appreciate him taking the time to send.
And what I think I may envision from this is that once we have a representative from each area of concern, that we may coach the individual that's representing on the questions to ask to help them to make the questions for their survey as they have canvassers on the ground, just by learning about any issues that they've noticed. Maybe a grandparent saying that all of her grandchildren have asthma now or so forth. Just questions that we would take in as that can be an indicator, but they may not.
Sorry,
Yes.
so just to clarify one more thing. What's the intention, or I should say maybe the best outcome of this study? Like,
It's not especially clear still. There is a document. Are we able to share that, Dr. Miller, or is that?
Yes.
Is that
I'm not
something-
able to at the moment, but
Okay,
if you could.
I can
like,
share.
okay.
I can share my screen if that would be helpful.
So it seems like aerosols and low-level ozone, right, are kind of like we're saying they're detrimental to our health in a lot of ways, right? We know a lot of these areas were already affected by it. Why are we trying to get anecdotes from people instead of just spending that money to try and fix the issue we already know exists?
That's a great question. And this project is a smaller part of a larger project. North Carolina A&T has a grant from the Department of Energy for their, is it called a climate lab? Okay, yes. And so they've already began doing a study in Greensboro, but they want to include the triad to extend the study to continue to get the funding. So how will that be beneficial to our residents? That's a question that we have asked a couple of times.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit of context, Mason. While the study technically has two components, the primary purpose of the study is to better understand the chemistry. I would still reinforce that. It says right here there's a second aspect that's a social science component. But if you read further down to Kira's point that she just made, we sort of asked this question of like, what do we get out of it in a sense? And he even sort of makes a passing comment somewhere of like, well, much of what you might get might already be accessible, but we'll get some more specific information maybe. And so, yeah, I mean, it's basically going to assess the extent to which, yeah, trees produce compounds and the extent to which local communities are affected by that stuff. And so one of the conversations that we had sort of between these meetings was, it seems valuable to participate. It seems valuable for the connections alone, maybe a little bit to A&T and the climate lab, but also to the Greensboro group that might come out of this as well, since they're sort of more heavily involved, meaning the Greensboro city group, who Shailene's obviously connected or was connected to as well. But it was unclear how much effort, like, are we literally doing everything to create this focus group? Like, we're finding the 6 to 12 people and we're finding the place and they're just showing up and asking the questions. Like, how much effort is it worth to do that? And I'm not sure I still have an answer based on what has happened here. I don't know if Christy or Kira or anyone else, based on what they're hearing, have a response, but that's where I kind of stand with it. Jean, did you had your hand up before?
I had my hand up. I was not there for the presentation. Just I scanned what was written here. And I feel like we're reinventing the wheel, unless I'm missing something, or unless they want to have something very specific, which celebrate. I don't know. I don't know.
You're cutting out a little bit. Could you move closer to the mic, or like maybe your mic
Sure.
is blocked?
I'm sorry. Is this better?
Yeah, it's a lot
It is
better.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I just feel like it's reinventing the wheel because we know that these things are detrimental. That's a given. And I'm wondering if they're trying to just prove, well, it's not only happening in Chicago, it's happening here. And that's one thing. And two, I think going to community groups and trying to find individuals to be the focus group would be the only way we would get a focus group. But as one who's tried to get various community organizations, with the exception of the one Christy is working with, it's like pulling teeth. And I don't know. That's all I'm going to say. But then some people may want to be in a focus group. I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like it's reinventing the wheel. But then again, I could be wrong.
Dr. Miller, I'd be interested to hear your take on the subject since receiving this latest. And if anyone would like to look at a different part of I think this was the part that Carter was referring to, this response down here. What is the expected benefits to the committee, and will you provide information back to the community? And I can read it out loud if you like, but it's here if you can see it, okay? Part of what Carter was saying is that they would happily provide a detailed report of the findings, which I really like that aspect of that. I think a lot of times when you're involved in research that you don't get to hear the outcomes, and that's not satisfying as a participant. But this part, the second sentence, although we're not able to say with certainty that we'll discover new information, it's often helpful to get confirmatory information from outside research. I imagine that the agency funding the research will be interested in the findings as well. So a little vague, but Dr. Miller, what's your response after reading this and hearing back from them as far as the amount of effort you think our committee should put forth?
I don't disagree with what you're saying. And I believe part of what they're doing is trying to get a larger grant based on what they're doing thus far. But I mean, you guys can respond in many ways. You can, have your committee or your subcommittee continue to actually, take the event in place. You can, go the other way and just recommend who they want to talk to. You can somewhere in the middle and make the introductions. So I think there are multiple ways you could do it. You could say that we'll set up a meeting, but you need to, help advertise it. There's multiple ways. They did say they could possibly offer to pay the people who are a part of it. So that may help with some of the concerns on who would want to participate if they don't know what benefits they're going to get. So I'd say, you have that range of responses. I wouldn't disagree with what Carter said either, that participating may just make it easier to collaborate in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I didn't think of that. Yeah.
I'd say one other answer could be that you would like them to collaborate with a local university and then you work with them. I don't know how that one would go. But that could be another way to bring in more local stakeholders.
Would it make sense at the very least to loop in the Citizens Climate Lobby and PEA as organizations that are doing community groundwork and might know people in those areas that have already expressed interest in sustainability and are sitting on those, organizations or boards?
I think that could be one way to do it.
It's also not just easier to collaborate in the future. There's sort of this investment that's occurring where, like, if they got a climate resiliency lab, and we were connected before the moment that happened, there's some scenario where that provides some money to do some things related to this in our community. Right. And I'm guaranteed the lion's share would still go to Greensboro probably, but so I would propose, let me just say, I would propose that this probably falls on Christy and Kira or anyone else who wants to be involved in this part of the process, but that the middle option sounds the most intriguing, like us identifying like the organizations and connecting them so that the professors from A&T can sort of start those facilitations, and maybe we're on those emails and help like plug certain other people in, but that we're not a month from now or 2 months from now saying, here's your 12 people kind of thing, where we've done all the work and they're sort of just sitting back.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And again, and we talked about this in our last meeting, but it might be helpful. Here, I'll stop sharing the screen. It might be helpful with this committee to get more individuals that are interested in sustainability to be on our committee. So I think that it does have potential of serving multiple functions to potentially reach out, at least to start with Citizens Climate Lobby and PEA, which I'm happy to start with those. If that sounds like a good idea, I can share this document and set up, write an email or set up a meeting with them.
I'm supportive of that.
Okay, just so that I'm straight, what we're proposing, or what Carter proposed, was to give the people that are doing this study names of organizations to contact. Is that? And
maybe even make the introduction, I would say, or like,
okay.
Email. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless, Kira, do you have other suggestions besides those? Are the two big organizations I know about in town, Citizens Climate Lobby and PEA, that have, pretty big regular attendance? I mean, are there other organizations that are, really pertain to sustainability that you might want to loop in, knowing that the Earth Day fair is coming up too? I mean,
having a table there, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. I think that, not trying to throw Carter and I under the bus, but definitely getting Wake Forest involved. And, I'm an alum of Salem College as well. And we were kind of big on sustainability. And let's see, Dr. Porter and Dr. Dunn are still there. So getting them engaged as well. And that would be the south side of Winston-Salem, that they could get engaged and have those meetings. So absolutely. And I like being in the middle option, because it's not taking us out of the scenario, and we still have the relationship, and we can easily get access to any data that they provide. So
I propose that Christy make those connections, and maybe Kieran and I can talk offline about connecting to Winston-Salem, and we will bring this back up next month. It sounds like they're moving, but it's not like highly urgent that we decide on this now. And I know we're at time.
There was, it said that they wanted to meet in June, before June was when they wanted the focus group.
Right.
So it's,
So
worth
maybe I can, or Shailene, or I don't know, we can figure it out how to update them on what we're thinking.
And may I just say one thing? I didn't mean to be a naysayer.
No.
But I just, I beat my head against the wall, as you know. I think that looking at the big picture that all of you looked at, if Chrissy, if you need help, I'll be very happy.
Great. So we can either move to hear about the staff updates, which is the last agenda item that from Shailene, or since we're at time, we can also choose to adjourn now if anyone has any preferences, and we can push that to the next meeting.
the next meeting being in June, correct?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
2 months because there's no meeting in May. Yeah.
Well, how long would it take to do staff updates?
Just a few minutes, Shailene, you think, or?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just hear from Shailene and then we can adjourn.
Yeah.
So first, I have been contacting with the utilities and landfill, because one of the things I wanted to get this group to do was to connect more with the different aspects that does interact with sustainability. And I know they can only do weekdays, like during hours. So I wanted to know if anyone could attend and if one day was preferable over the other. So they have either April 26th morning or April 24th afternoon. Is there any interest in attending a landfill tour? You also get to see like where they do concrete recycling, where they make methane into energy, where their landfill expansion is going to be, tire recycling, where they keep the tires.
I think probably the 26th for me personally, just because I can't do Wednesdays.
The 26th is better for me as well.
No, I'm going to be out of town.
I'll be out of
I
town.
was going to say the 24th.
Oh, you'll be out just the 26th though.
There is a possibility. Next week I will be inviting the food council. If we have enough people, I could do the second date as well. But for now, we'll start with one date.
Yeah.
And maybe in the June meeting, we can put on the agenda, like maybe a report back from somebody who did attend one, because I won't be able to go to those dates. I'll be out of town as well. So.
And then if you have other places or things you'd like to see, I know some of you have already done the recycling MRV tour. That could be something. You guys can just shoot me an email of where you might like for future, and I can try to arrange that as well. So I will send out a mail. I'll confirm the April 26th morning, and then I'll send out a notice so you can confirm that you're on the date, because they can only take 6 or 7 people at a time. Okay.
I went on a tour of the water treatment facility and it was fascinating.
Unbelievable.
I could not believe, I went with my father-in-law. It blew my mind.
Is that the one down in Clemensville?
I'm not sure which.
Yeah, I think
south
so.
of the city.
It was
Near
so
Hobby Park,
helpful to get an understanding of just the carbon footprint of water. It was just something I hadn't taken into consideration.
Right.
How much carbon is required to take in the water, clean the water, and then to transport the water so many places. It was fascinating, and I think does pertain to our committee quite well.
So is there others who'd like to see the water treatment who haven't?
Yes, please.
I would go to that as well. Yeah.
I actually I bike at Hobby Park like you know, often, so I see it and I'm just like, I wonder what they do there. And, yeah, it'd be good to check it out.
Well, and with that, I can move on to the next piece, which is come May, I believe it's going to council to add 4 Teslas and 3 Ford Lightnings. So 7 electric vehicles. So is going to council for fleet. The Lightnings would be used for stormwater and streets. And Teslas, 2 of them would go to utilities. They would be at the wastewater treatment plant. And the other 2 would be fleet pool vehicles. So one is still being decided and the other is probably going to be like a fleet rental. So I think that's positive move forward.
That is fantastic. That's something we've been talking about for years on this committee, that
That's
it has
great.
not gone to council. I mean, it has not gone to council, and the fact that well done. I'm not sure who is pushing all of that, but what a celebration.
Good stuff.
That it's going in front of council.
Well
Thank
done.
I hope I'm not taking us off topic too much here, but I think there is probably one other really quick thing we should ask about is, do we have like a common Google Drive or something that we can share documents, or even a common email that we can all share ideas with and such?
I have been asking Mason, following up on that with legal, and I have not gotten feedback yet on that.
Okay.
I will follow up with him again. I would think the Google thing would be okay. I know a threaded email is not, because that's considered public communication.
Okay, understood. All right, that's fine. Yeah, I just wanted to like you know, any upcoming topics and such, maybe upcoming events that we all would want to be a part of, or something like that.
Yeah, if you do want to send something out, you could always send it to me and I can blind copy everybody.
Okay.
And so that I can let people know aware of things.
All
right. We are going forward with the natural landscape area demonstration garden at 2nd Street. Forsyth Audubon approved a $3,500 grant to pay for the native plants. Bashivia Gardens and Matthew Mayers is going to be installing it and maintaining it. So vegetation management is going to go spray that in April to kill the grass, and they even agreed. Bashivia suggested that even the grass that's going to maintain the setback that we're trying to show residents is going to be a native grass. So that's moving forward, and you can all congratulate Mason for being our very first registration and our first sign to go out.
Yeah, I've installed it. I'll send photos later.
Please send photos.
Congratulations.
Yeah. We are also going to be spraying the Happy Hill area, that acre that we've designated as our first city meadow, and we'll have temporary signage going up as well. For Earth Day, there will be 6 different tables from the city, not counting utilities, who does their own. And so you'll see sustainability, recycling, and Keep Winston-Salem Beautiful this year will all each have their own. So make sure you stop by and see us. We're even going to have a sign this year, so you'll be able to find us. I know it's a big deal. It's like,
I remember you working on that, and that was harder than you thought. That's wonderful. So much happening.
And but there's a lot of changes happening still. Tiffany Oliva, who came and introduced herself in November, who was my supervisor, she gave her 2 weeks notice on Monday, so she will be gone at the end of next week. I am temporarily stepping in as also intergovernmental relations until they rehire, so I will be dealing with all the grant work that comes through. city management, you also may have read that Patrice Tony is leaving for the town of Carborough. So city manager has put it out that they will be hiring 2 new ACMs. So, you know, we're gonna have like
What's
half
ACM?
of the half of the
Assistant city
management's gonna be
manager.
new.
Okay.
And Patrice Tony, we're going to miss her so much. She's incredible for our city. Oh,
Well, Shailene, do you know if the job description is going to come to me again? I know I was asked to review the job description to make sure sustainability was included in it. So, and I think they took the 2 sentences out that I added, but yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know. But I'm told that, you know, that is now an immediate need.
Oh.
We are also been hiring for Keep Winston-Salem Beautiful. George Stilfen, who's been doing this for 24 years in this job, is retiring at the end of May. I'm doing my best to get someone in to overlap him by a week or 2. So we had a 2-week announcement for it, and I am interviewing next week candidates. So we're doing our best to fill that. So those are the major updates for the moment. Happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
Isn't there a major presentation tomorrow? Or did I read that?
Yes.
wrong?
Yes. Stan Mayberg is going to present in the 5th floor of the Bryce A. Stewart building, which is also called City Hall South, at 11:30. So he's supposed to do like half talk and half question and answer. So yes, please come. It's part of our Earth Month Climate Education Week. So that's all I have for the moment.
Any other questions? Do we have to vote to adjourn, or do I just adjourn us?
You just adjourn.
Great, I adjourn.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you all so much.
Is there another meeting at 6, or well, I guess it's not, it's past 6, but for the food resiliency, is that this week or is that next week?
That's next week.
Next week. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, great to see you all. See you in 2 months, and probably hear from some of you in the meantime. So
Yes.
bye.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Good to see you all. See you soon. Bye.
If you need any help, just let me know on contacting people.
yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll when we email, we can email up to 3 people, or can we all be on an email? I'm sorry, could you clarify that, Dr. Miller? Can I have 4 people on an email? Is that okay?
As long as you don't meet quorum.
As long as we don't meet quorum.
So under 6, 5 and under.
Okay, so I'll kind of draft something and be in touch with Bill Blancato and Jamie Myers, who I'll probably start with.
Okay.
And then I'll loop you in after that, and hopefully we can connect with some universities too. So thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, thank
Yay.
you.
Yay. Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.